Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So we are looking at what's been happening on the Guns blockchain, and the Guns blockchain is Gunzilla Games blockchain using the Avalanche tech stack, although it's its own L1 blockchain, and it is mainly being used for Off the Grid. So Off the Grid is the first blockchain-enabled console game. So it's live on PlayStation 5, live on PC, obviously, and also it is live on Xbox. I think it's still through the Xbox Insiders program, so it's it's not sort of live for everyone. You just have to sign up for the Insiders program to get it. The other thing to point out is the game is just it's just sort of a single mode is currently live, so sort of team-based battle royale mode, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff to go live at some point. So this is the very early stages. It's about 4 weeks since it launched. So I've pulled these figures. Obviously, you can just look at the Guns blockchain and pull the figures from there. So what we're looking at here is new wallets created daily on the Guns blockchain. So the Guns blockchain is actually still in testnet. So it's running, but it's on testnet rather than mainnet at the moment. Expect mainnet to go live pretty soon, any time now, really. And you can see how many wallets have been created. It's almost 10 million wallets have been created, in fact, and about 2.5 million wallets were created before Off the Grid went live on PlayStation 5 and PC. So there's a whole bunch of wallets that have been sort of created for other reasons, and there's like a wallet apps and things like that are created. But basically, we're looking here at when Off the Grid went live. So the sort of you can see here, it actually officially went live on the I think on the 10th, but obviously people were playing around with it, probably on the PC version, I would think, rather than the console version. But people were creating these sort of wallets, and we can see this sort of big growth. So over the period of time that Off the Grid went live, the biggest day for creating wallets was the Friday the 11th of October, so almost 800,000 wallets created that day. I've put the weekends here in sort of a darker blue so we can sort of see what's going on, because generally people tend to play more at weekends. But as we can see, big spike on the Friday. Saturday and Sunday are actually a bit lower. Then Monday and Tuesday were actually really high, over 600,000 both those days, and it drops down quite a lot. The next weekend, quite small. The weekend after that, again, it's pretty small. Remember, this is new wallet, so we'll look at who's playing. Remember, sort of Call of Duty goes live this week as well, during that week as well. Massive spike on the 31st. Not quite sure why that is. I think it could be actually that's when it went fully live on Xbox rather than being through the Insider program. So I think it may be live on Xbox now. Without the Insider program, and we can see the sort of last weekend actually quite small numbers of wallets, so well under 100,000, 50,000 wallets. So that's the smallest amounts of new wallets being created, but millions of wallets have been created. So we can have a look and see what that means. Let's skip that one for the time being. So here we go. This is like the daily activity. So this graph looks complicated. It is a little bit complicated, but let's break it down. So there are two data sources we can look at. So one is DAP Radar, which is normally where I take my data from. This is this green line here. So DAP Radar is obviously just looking at some smart contracts that it associates with Off the Grid and looking at how active they are. So it gives us this figure here. Under 250,000 daily active unique wallets, which is still quite a lot for a blockchain game. Then the other data provider is Flipside. So presumably these are looking at the same data on the Guns blockchain, but they're just sort of looking at it in different ways. And often you sort of have to make a decision on what you think is an active wallet. So even on Flipside, they have one of their data points is called active wallet. So this is in blue. Again, I've made it darker for the weekend. So we have these sort of blue. This is how many active wallets there are. I assume that is how many people are playing the game, because whenever someone starts playing the game for the first time, a wallet is made for them in the background, and whenever they're playing the game, they're, I assume, logging in with the wallet into the blockchain to play a game. So that will be the sort of the active, that will be the highest level. And then it has these things called sender wallets. So these are, I'm not quite sure, to be honest, these are in red. I assume these are wallets are actually doing something, so sort of sending something rather than just logging in and playing the game. So in the game you get these hexes, they're the sort of reward structure, and they're sort of contain NFTs, and you put together some of the NFTs to make weapons. So that's we've sort of got three different levels of activity here, and they're all measuring clearly slightly different things. Gunzilla hasn't put out any official numbers yet, so this is sort of the best we've got. But what we sort of can see, I'm sort of taking that radar. I sort of ignored that radar. I did speak to Gunzilla, and they said that radar numbers were wrong. But we can take them as a sort of an absolute sort of worst case scenario of what's going on. In the active wallet side, again, we have the same dates that we saw before have the biggest activity. So on the sort of the Friday it went live, we have this massive pick up here of active wallets, so that's probably about the same as what we were looking at with the new wallets. And then interestingly, on the 31st of October, again, we have a massive spike here, so almost 1 million active wallets on that day. We know there was a whole bunch of wallets created that day, but obviously once you've created a wallet, you can still be an active wallet. The sender wallets is lower in most cases, but actually here, where we've got to now, the sender and the active wallets are sort of about the same. It sort of suggests that maybe to begin with, people were just sort of coming in and trying to play the game, and maybe not getting sort of deep into sort of finishing games and stuff. I played the game and it's pretty difficult. I just got killed all the time, so not necessarily a very fun experience. But now here we can see that the active wallets and the sender wallets totals are pretty much the same. So that sort of suggests that people are sort of getting into the doing some blockchain stuff in the games as well. The important thing, I guess, is looking at the numbers. So numbers, high for the first sort of weekend, and the first sort of 5 days are quite high. Drops down, although not that low. I mean, this is still hundreds of thousands of wallets. And the following weekend was a bit low, actually, especially this Saturday. Then we see it rising up again. The third weekend was quite high, so 750,000 that day, over for 500,000. And then it stayed pretty high, really, for the last 10 days with this massive spike on the 31st. But now this weekend it's been pretty solid, over 500,000, no matter how you're measuring that. And so Call of Duty is live now as well. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is live, so you imagine some people are sort of playing that as well. So actually, we have much better sustained audience now than it did sort of at the start, where it spiked and then sort of came down again. But it's sort of building audience. So it's actually, I would say had a pretty good start. And the interesting bit is it's now sort of solidly getting people to play the game, sort of almost like day on day, really. Actually, weekends are sort of a bit lower, which is interesting. So we have these sort of data points. We can look at the number of, if we add up all the number of new wallets every day, we get an cumulative number. So if we have 1 million wallets one day and 500,000 wallets the next day, then that's 1.5 million cumulative wallets, and we keep adding them up. And then we can just do a percentage. So for every day, how many active wallets are there and how many wallets have been created since the game went live. So this is what this is looking at. It's a sort of very crude sort of retention mechanic. You can see, obviously, at the start it's sort of high because when the thing launches, everyone's creating a wallet and everyone's playing, and then some of these people won't play, so it drops off quite quickly. Again, we have the active wallets and the sender wallets in blue and red. And so sort of the first few days, it's going to be high, but it's going to be dropping because people are sort of coming in, playing, and for any experience, a whole bunch of people will never play again. So again, what we're looking at is what's the sustained audience. I mean, actually see here, I guess the sustained audience of about sort of 10% of the active wallets are or sort of over 10% here. So 10% of the wallets, all the wallets that have ever played are still playing the game, which is actually pretty high. It's down to about 7% here. But again, if you've created millions of wallets, 7%, keeping 7% of them is pretty good. So again, this is sort of early days. This is the first sort of month. So I'd be interested to see. Sort of over time, this number obviously tends to sort of zero because you're always having more wallets being created and people sort of churning out over time. So it's sort of a question of how quickly that sort of number decays. It can obviously increase. It's not if people come back in or new modes go live, particularly when the campaign mode goes live, that'll be interesting to see what sort of pickup there is. So that's sort of what we're looking at here. It's not so much for this information, it's sort of looking at how this information is going to change over time. And then the final graph here is looking at a different game. So this is off the grid here is in red. So every one of these dots is a day, and it's how many active wallets there are. Taking the active wallets from Flipside. And comparing this with Pixels, so Pixels up to this point in sort of 2024 has been the most popular blockchain game in terms of on-chain activity. That's not there are other metrics, but it's sort of a good one to look at. And at one point it was over 1 million active wallets. running on the Ronin blockchain. Again, even with Pixels, there are different sort of metrics around active wallets and wallets doing stuff in the game. Planting seeds is the main thing you do in the game, so you can actually split that out, and probably 50% of the people of the active wallets are not actually planting in the game, but that's another thing. So it was over 1 million. It dropped right down because they changed the way in which you claim tokens, and a lot of bots mainly sort of left the game. It's came back up to about 750,000. It's come back down again recently to 500,000. It's actually down a bit lower now. All the time in Pixels, they're looking to sort of drive their token rewards to people who are really committed to playing the game, rather than bots or people who are just sort of swanning in to try and get some rewards. So for them, the daily activity is not really a metric they care about so much as they care about sort of sustained DAUs and the money that they're generating from that. But we can see as sort of Pixels has been going down, it's still higher than it was at the start of the year, but as Pixels has been going down, that's just when Off the Grid launched. So Off the Grid, for pretty much every day Off the Grid's been live, it's had more daily active unique wallets than Pixels. I mean, these are very different games. This is on a console. It's a big shooter, big AAA game. Pixels is a sort of a browser social RPG, very pixelated, very sort of cute, and just appeal to very different audiences, I would imagine. But it's just interesting, as Pixels was the most popular blockchain game for a long time, and it actually, even if you use Off the Grid's data from that radar, they're now pretty much about the same. But as we say, we think that radar's numbers are low. So Off the Grid, as much as these things matter, if Off the Grid is now the most popular blockchain game, as ever, we'll see over time. We can see, Pixels had a really good launch period up to 1 million here in May, and then dropped down. So again, with Off the Grid, how will it sustain over the coming months and years? That's what we're looking to see. But at the moment, yeah, as I say, pretty good. Lots of wallets created. Obviously, lots of marketing with streamers, Ninja, Stroud, Tim the Tapman, all that sort of stuff, and some of those were continuing to play. And we'll look to see how the activity changes over time, and see can it sustain at 500,000. Probably can for a while, I would think. So that would be interesting to see. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you again soon.